I want to share with you my thoughts around why I eat meat, why I prioritize eating humanely raised meat, and am happy to make sacrifices in other areas of my budget in order to do so. I'm a Christian, and I believe that the Bible is God's story of redemption of humanity from evil. I believe that the Bible is God's word, but it's not a diet book. I see some online folks talking about, the milk and honey diet. That wasn't why the Bible was written, but it does give us some helpful principles which inform why and how I eat meat. One of these is found in Genesis, where when God creates the world, he creates mankind to be good caretakers of the world. That's why he made us, to be good caretakers, to be in the image of God, and he made us also and gave us permission to eat all available food. But as the Bible progresses, God actually does then give to the Jews some quite strict dietary guidelines as a way of setting them apart from the people around them, to show that they're God's chosen people. When Jesus comes and dies and then rises again, both Jews and non-Jews are invited to be part of God's chosen people, and those dietary laws and other strict guidelines are done away with. They're fulfilled in Jesus' death and resurrection, and Peter has a vision in Acts chapter 11. He's an apostle, he's a Jew, and God says 3 times to him, Peter, eat unclean and clean animals. And he was like, what? But it's a way of God saying both Jews and non-Jews are welcome into God's family, and we're also now able to have permission to eat both clean and unclean animals, and those dietary guidelines, as specified in the Old Testament, we're no longer beholden to them in the same way. However, so we've got this permission to be able to eat meat, but how do we do so in a way that means that we're good caretakers of God's world? How do we be good stewards? And how do we reconcile with this sense of wrongness that many people feel about the death of animals for food? I know I felt it, which is why I became a vegetarian for 9 months, because I couldn't reconcile the suffering of animals with my need for food, to eat them. So I come back to this Old Testament practice of animal sacrifice. The Jews sacrificed animals as a proxy or a substitute for God's wrath at human evil. When we do evil against other people or against God, it was meant to be a really raw, real reminder of the consequences of sin. Following the death of the animal, the sacrifice of the animal, the Jews would then share in a meal and eat the animal. But there was a sense of wrongness. It would have felt uncomfortable. In the same way, I think the death of animals for our food should also leave us feeling a bit uncomfortable. This isn't how it was meant to be. We live in a broken world with broken systems and this sense of wrongness in so many aspects of our lives. That's why Jesus came, to fix the wrongness, to be the solution to human evil and suffering and the brokenness of the world that we live in. However, we need to hold the tension that we also do need meat to be healthy, for optimal health, particularly, and this is well documented scientifically, for babies and young people, for the elderly and for people with chronic illnesses. Meat eating is really important. Unfortunately, not only are plant-based diets insufficient in vitamin B12, they also don't have bioavailable sources of things like vitamin D, zinc, iodine, EPA, DHA. Studies have shown that there's issues with bone density, having low bone density, and for women in particular having low iron when on a plant-based diet. So that's just shows that it's not fully complete, that diet, for optimal human health. So what do we do with this? We have permission from God to eat animals. We need to eat meat for optimal human health, but there's also this sense of wrongness of needing to eat meat or for the death of an animal in order to eat meat. Firstly, all life is built on death because we live in a broken world. Even people on a plant-based diet need to reconcile the fact that through industrial cropping and the use of pesticides and herbicides, entire ecosystems are destroyed. All life is based on the death of other organisms. Also, regenerative farming does need livestock and animals in order to thrive and function well. Livestock churns and tills the soil. It also is an important way of capturing carbon, which offsets the amount of methane it produces. I need to reconcile the fact that I'm alive because other organisms have had to die. And I need to hold that tension that when I eat meat, I can be really grateful and thankful that the life of an animal, that animal gave its life for me in order to be healthy. But I can also feel this sense of mourning and loss and wrongness that animal had to give its life for me to be healthy. There is a brokenness in this world, and we need Jesus to return to fix it. Secondly, we need to therefore be good stewards of the meat that we do eat. I believe that industrial farming, which leads to cramped conditions for animals, unhygienic conditions, which then lead to the need for significant antibiotic use, just unethical and cruel behaviour of some farm workers towards animals in these conditions, and the fact that they're fed a species inappropriate diet of corn and grain leads to evil. I think it's evil, and I have seen too many videos that I now feel I cannot support the industrial farming of meat, which is why I order my meat from places like Butcher Crowd, Our Cow, Stockman Steaks are just a few examples of online places. Also, if you live near an ethical butcher, I highly recommend you check them out and see what types of meat they have to offer. But I'm also very aware that eating this way is a privilege because it is expensive. I do give up things like going out, buying new clothes in order to do this. But I understand that for other people, you're just making ends meet. And I think there is grace here in the fact that, you need to feed your children. We live in a broken world with broken systems, and there's no escaping that. So I think you do what you absolutely can, but you also shouldn't feel, guilty if you can't, because there is grace, and we are just waiting on Jesus to come back and redeem this whole mess of a world. For me, I have peace of mind when I buy through these online places. Often they're certified as humanely raised, which means that they've been raised on pasture, they've been given good quality of life, they've been well treated, well cared for, and then towards the end of their life, they're humanely slaughtered in ethical ways that don't prolong the distress of the animal, and that ensure that it's calm and safe. Yeah, so it does definitely cost more to eat this way, but for me it's important that I live in line with my values, and I know that I feel a lot happier living in line with my values than, eating out all the time. Personally, that's my choice. I'd love to hear your thoughts on meat eating. Is this something that you've actually considered before? We are so disconnected from the meat that we eat that I sometimes feel like it's very easy not to think through this as an issue and just to put your blinkers on. There's so much that we have to reconcile and wrestle with as humans. But I would just encourage you that maybe just add this to your list of things to think through. Why do you eat meat? Why do you eat the type of meat that you do? And are there ways that you can think around how to be a good caretaker of the world that we live in, and a good caretaker of the animals that we share this planet with? because I think, that is what God made us for and has commanded us to do. So they're my thoughts. Keen to hear your thoughts, and keen to have a discussion from a place of curiosity and the willingness to challenge in a respectful, gracious way. Thanks for listening.